Where are you right now? Are you in LA?
I am, yeah.
I will never say this again to another human being, but how about those Dodgers?
Those Dodgers have great starting pitching, but no bullpen. So we're we're
Okay.
we're pretty much freaking out down here.
All
So,
right, you're already being a catastrophist. You're supposed to be like my neighbor who's been trolling me because I'm a lifelong Giants fan. He's been
yeah,
trolling me for months. Um,
we're very nervous down here.
okay.
We cannot hold a lead, and I respect. I love the fact that um, the Giants and the Dodgers, after playing thousands of games, are basically 500 against each other. They're within like one game. Isn't that amazing?
Oh, you're
You
not wrong. You're not
yeah,
wrong.
yeah.
I was at the game where the Giant at Oracle Park where the Giants I think won like I want to say oh gosh it was a walk off grand slam in the ninth or something that we won the game on.
Yeah.
And my buddies and I got on the Jumbotron singing Miley Cyrus Party in the USA arm in arm. And there's
Oh,
just something about 50-year-old dudes just like having a moment. Anyway, music does that to you. Am I right, John?
hey, I just want to sit in the boat and catch like home runs. I
Yes,
see
you
it.
do.
I just like I see those guys. I'm like, I want to be that guy. I
Yeah,
want to catch an Otani like blast or something like that, right? So, but what a great
100%.
it's a great rivalry. All the rivalries. The Kings and the Sharks, the Dodgers and the Giants. It's a
Hmm.
lot of fun, and
So
I have
good.
most of my business manager's a huge Giants fan, and the Padres has also have come up with pretty good rivalry too. So we have great baseball in California, that's for sure.
Yeah, we do love it. I want to talk about your trip here. You're on tour. You're performing with a string quartet. Two shows in our listening area was so Monterey at the
Yeah.
Golden Gate Theater on Saturday, the 25th of October, and then one of my favorite, both two great venues, but the Uptown Theater in Napa is just chef's kiss. That'll be on the 26th, and with a string quartet's got to be pretty awesome. Um, I have to before I forget. I wrote down things I need to say to John before I die because I'm a huge fan. So I wrote a couple things down. So you and I did a show together in Golden Gate Park in 2010. I
Yeah,
don't know if you remember this show at all,
I
but it
do.
would. I think Chances had just hit,
Yep.
um, and I remember being there, and you were playing "100 Years," and I liked the song a ton, but I was 37, no wife, no kid and it was great. But now I'm 52. I have a wife, an 11-year-old little girl, a wife that I reconnected with at that show, and we've
Oh
been
wow.
together ever since,
Oh
FYI.
wow.
And I was also, was a caregiver for my dad until he passed in 2022. And I was listening to that just kind of get back in the mix with your music. I was listening to you on the iHeartRadio app and tracking the songs. And that song came and I'm bawling in the car because it hits so much harder now. And so I guess I just wanted to say thank you for keeping it into perspective, if that makes sense. You know, I really appreciate it. Um, that song and I Superman, which became kind of the anthem to keep us all together during 9/11. And since then, over the last couple of decades, you've written just a trove of songs that speak on what's going on in the world in that moment. How do you keep from getting just crushed by the weight of emotion when you do those songs?
That's a good question, and thank you for the kind words.
Yeah,
I just turned 60 this year, so I'm kind of in the bridge of 100 years.
sure.
I wrote it in the top of that second verse. Family on my mind, early
Hmm.
30s, and I survived the midlife crisis verse, which we all go through, and so it's kind of fun to kind of age with the song. We're all in there
Yeah.
somewhere. And again, I think a lot of these songs are really post-it notes to myself that most folks can relate to. Look, 100 years, appreciate the moment. It's not always great, but it's what we have.
Hmm.
Superman, basically about our innate humanity. It's not easy to be me. We're human beings. And the other songs too. I think the emotion spurs the songs, right? In the last few years, as you mentioned, I've written a song about the Afghanistan withdrawal, the war in Ukraine, the aftermath of October 7th in Israel, and the emotion, the pain, the horror of some of those events, as well as the inspiration you see. I took a trip to Ukraine and I met the people and I sang with a Ukrainian orchestra in a war zone. you go to Israel, you play Hostage Square, and you meet with hostage families.
Hmm.
You also see the best of humanity. You see and that inspires you to write these songs and to tell people stories that, frankly, sometimes only musicians can tell. So that really kind of keeps me inspired, and I'm just so grateful that the songs, still seem to have a place in the culture, and as a songwriter, I think it's wonderful to have hit songs. I wish every songwriter had hit song, but to have songs that stand the test of time, I think that also is something that you long for as a songwriter. Certainly,
Sure.
the songs that I grew up on loving, the songs from the '70s, the great songwriters, we hear them every day. And the fact that 100 years, you still hear it graduations and weddings and
Right.
funerals, and it's nice to have one of those or a couple of those songs.
We have a fan question coming in.
Yeah.
11th graders want to know if the riddle was inspired by Walt Whitman's In Song for Myself. That is from Jan, who's checking in. Jan, I don't know where you teach, but I'm asking him the question. There you go. Did you hear what I said? Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. No, it did not. The riddle was really kind of inspired by two little kids sitting on my lap, giving me perspective on life. I think you don't write 100 Years or the riddle without two young kids who tend to have wisdom that only the innocents can have,
Hmm.
and especially so many of us are kind of consumed with our jobs and the world and our ambitions and winning and sometimes we forget to stop and take a breath and look what's right in front of us.
Yeah,
That matters. I think one of the silver linings of COVID, it kind of reminded us what matters. Going out to
sure.
dinner with your mom, having dinner with your family. So I think the riddle, it's interesting. It was the hardest song for me to get right, if I ever did get it right. It took me a year to write. Superman took an hour, which
Oh,
the
wow.
joke is I've been looking for that hour ever since. 100 years took a few months, but the riddle took a while to kind of finish that song. But
Yeah,
it is kind of, I think, the third of the trio: Superman, 100 Years, and the riddle. But and I do, there are songs of mine that kind of that have been inspired by books or film or poetry. But the riddle is not one of them.
okay. It's interesting you bring up the innocence of children and how they keep, again, perspective comes back up. I always talk about on the air, like my daughter's 11 now, but rediscovering the world through your kids' eyes. Like I'll never forget the first time I stepped out into the rain with my daughter, and it was her first time in the rain, and
Yeah.
she didn't know what was happening. And she had, her mom always laces her up. She's got the cute rain boots on and the cute little sweater and the jacket and the little hat, and she's like, "Dad, what's this?" And in that moment, you're like, "Oh my God!" And again, the brakes are on life. Like your brakes are just on. This is the only moment that matters.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty interesting. Do you ever have to do anything after you write a heavy song to like kind of come down or get back in a good space? Or does writing the song or performing the song actually help you get into a good space?
I think that's the thing. I think songs are cathartic, right?
Hmm.
For me, I love sports, but I wasn't going to be a professional athlete. And for me,
Right.
sometimes dealing with the angst of a young man or rejection of the music business, or
Yeah.
instead of hitting a punching bag, I would bang on the piano. And so many of these things are cathartic for me. So kind of and again, a lot of these songs, they don't happen in a day, but when you sing the vocal to maybe the song "Okay, We're Not Okay" that I wrote about October 7th, you feel better because you've released that angst, that emotion, and you feel that you're at least contributing to to the culture in a certain way. That
Yeah.
a lot of people feel like, well, I'm voiceless. What can I do? And everybody has a role to play. Everybody can, it doesn't have to be a singer, an athlete, a celebrity. Everyone has a role to play. You do it every day. And,
Sure.
so I think for being able to speak it and become a voice for those who are voiceless, I think that gives you a certain satisfaction, but more importantly, more an energy to keep doing it. And I just
Yeah.
have to say one thing about, your daughter, that experience. One thing that I'm so blessed for on this tour is my daughter Olivia is opening for me with her
Oh,
little
wow.
folk rock band, Lace and Lee, and she's aspiring singer songwriter, and you can
Yeah.
imagine as a dad, kind of watching her go through all that we went through 30 years ago, the excitement, the nervousness, the travel, the exhaustion, like signing an autograph, so for me, I'm kind of in that kid in the candy store moment, kind of
I
watching her
love it.
experience this stuff for the first time.
So you can catch daddy and daughter on stage. And let me give a plug again. Golden Gate Theater in Monterey, October 25th. Uptown Theater in Napa, October 26th. If you're, not in the Bay Area, we've got a full tour with a string quartet, which I think is pretty awesome. Let me get back to questions I've always wanted to ask John. Your voice is very unique. Is that trained, practiced, God-given, developed? Is it something that you kind of went, this is the way I want to sound, or did it just come out one day while you were singing?
Kind of a lot of it is kind of physiology,
Hmm.
but when I was in my early teens, of course, I loved the great rock singers, Freddie
Right.
Mercury. And I I wanted to find Steve Perry's voice teacher because I loved, of course, The Voice, Steve Perry,
Hmm.
The Voice. And turns out I did find him and that he was teaching a lot of these rock singers, Jack Russell from Great White, Axl Rose, Steve Perry, and he was training them operatically, classically. Freddie
Okay.
Mercury obviously was a trained classical singer. So for years, my early years, I was singing opera to kind of learn the technique of singing. But of course, I was listening to the Beatles and Peter Frampton and Joni Mitchell, and I wanted to be a pop rock singer. But that training kind of gave me the vocal chops to kind of have that falsetto and kind of
Right.
carry that through. And so yeah, it's a lot of it again is kind of natural, but there's a lot of work, especially with falsetto. You have to do a lot of care for your voice, right? Because you
Right.
sing it every night, travel. Um, so there's a lot. I have my routine and my pharmacy and
Hmm.
and my warm up tapes to kind of keep it going. But yeah, so far, typically people don't know this, but typically opera singers come into their prime in their 50s. Um, so technically, rock singers that do this, should be able to carry it a long time. And you're seeing many folks, continue into their 70s and 80s, just singing it at kind of at their heights, which is
Right.
amazing, inspiring to see.
Yeah, I learned something doing karaoke. It's okay to do Rocket Man early in the night. Your falsetto's warmed up, but I did in real time, I fell on my face. Don't try to do Mr. Jones by the Counting Crows in hour number 4. That's not a good idea.
Well,
Yeah.
you're welcome. You're welcome to come sing Rocket Man with us at the Uptown Theater if you so
Don't,
desire.
don't. Corey, he's invited me to come sing on stage with them.
What kind of world do you want, buddy? Come
What
on.
kind of, yeah. Hey, by the way, .com, am I right? How about what is the website for all of your charitable endeavors?
Yeah, well, a lot of our stuff's on fireforfighting.com. We also have whatkindofworlddoyouwant.com,
Right.
which again we kind of support many causes. One being Augie's Quest, a great ALS charity that my mentor
Yes.
Augie kind of started, and so there's a lot of stuff out there. We also have a music in the schools kind of NGO called Let Music Fill My World. That is our kind of new thing that provides school teachers for music teachers for schools that have lost their music teacher. So that's our new project, Let
Hmm.
Music Fill My World. And we have a contest where people can join and make videos and win money and sit with us and provide a school teacher for schools in need. And we've done that
So
twice. And we now
good.
have 2 music teachers, 3 years full time at schools. And we're trying to take that across America. So that's another passion for us.
So good. What kind of world do you want.com? I wanted to make sure to get it a plug. And fight4fighting.com, of course. You were talking earlier about taking care of your voice, and I'm really bad at it. I've been doing radio for now 33 years, and I like to sing a lot. I accidentally joined a band. I'm going to be performing at the Half Moon Bay Pumpkin Festival here in a couple of weeks, but
Sweet.
you'll appreciate this. The night before band practice, I decided this was the night of the Giants Dodger game, and I decided to yell. And there were way too many Dodger fans in my section, and I took it upon myself to shout them all down. And I woke up the next morning. I went, Marcus, that was dumb. So,
Marcus, let me tell you, you have your priorities in order. No, it's much
oh,
better,
thank you.
much more important to scream at Dodger fans or us scream at Giants fans than sing well. I've had many hoarse nights after LA Kings games, Dodger games, go down the list. So you're doing it
Oh,
right.
okay,
Yes,
I got your blessing. But
yes, sir.
if I am an aspiring singer, like obviously ways to take care of your voice. That can't be too hard. But are there any other rituals that you do pre-show, post-show that you feel like help your cause?
Yeah, you certainly do. I do a little warm up before. You
Right.
warm down after in the shower. I don't talk a lot during the day when I'm on tour. Try to keep, from kind of sound check to the end of the show, meet and greet, and then shut the voice down. There's
Yeah.
also things like if you're singing a lot every night, taking kind of antacids because the acid reflux is what kills you. I mean, you know that talking every day. The
Hmm.
acid reflux that really kind of kills you. So there are some some antacids and stuff you can take to kind of help with that. But it's really about trying to not get sick because if you're on the road and you get a sore throat or whatever, that's when you get in trouble. That can lead to laryngitis. So it's really about be healthy, sleep. I don't drink on the road. I'm not a big drinker anyways, but I don't drink on the road to the last gig till we all toast each other.
Okay.
It's kind of, it's changed a lot since the 90s.
Are you still
The
throwing catering on stage and stuff on the last show? Or
the vodka has been replaced with health shakes. You know, the protein powders all over the place,
Yeah,
and and yeah, so it's we have to take care of ourselves, and I think
sure.
and we still like to have fun, and certainly every once in a while we'll kind of go back to the old days, but it's really about take care of yourself and don't over talk. And when you start to feel an issue, be very careful. And as I said, I don't know how you guys do it every day, talking 3 4 hours and keeping the energy up. I have a great respect for that, but the other key I have, for whatever reason, sometimes tomato juice can help
Hmm.
when you're a little hoarse. That's a thing some people use,
Sure.
and and of course, going into saunas and the humidifiers and all that kind of stuff.
It's interesting being, a disc jockey, or especially a morning disc jockey in 2025. It's different than it was in the 90s and early 2000s. To your point, I don't have to pretend like I'm in a great mood all the time. They they want us to. So if I'm having a poopy day, or frankly, if I'm hungover, or if I'm hoarse, it just becomes part of the show.
It's
It's
better
just,
content.
yeah,
It's
it's way more kind of, we like to keep it real, for better or for worse.
I
Sometimes,
love that. Yeah, I
yeah,
love that too. And look, sometimes with some of our shows, my voice is not in the best place, but
right.
you're a human being, and people understand that, and you find other ways to tell the stories and sing. And again, we're all kind of doing the best we can with what we got on that day, and that's what makes it great. That's what makes it fun.
Absolutely. Well, I don't want to keep you. We could chat all day long, but again, don't miss Five for Fighting, John, and a string quartet, and it's going to be again Saturday, the 25th of October in Monterey, Golden Gate Theater, phenomenal. The Uptown Theatre Napa on the 26th. Catch me on stage singing Rocket Man at some point. My
I'll,
dude.
I think it's going to be a long, long time.
Thank you for the time, and
All
good
right,
luck
Mark.
on the road. I hope to connect in person soon, my man.
Thanks, Marcus. Take care. See you,
Take care,
everybody. Thanks for
John.
joining. All right. See you
Thanks for
later.
tuning in. Bye, guys.